So today we're going to talk about our Chinese ancestor LinJi, and I confess that I approached reading about Master LinJi with some ambivalence, with one of the feelings being trepidation. And the name LinJi is transliterated into Japanese as the name Rinzai. Rinzai Zen is the name of another important lineage parallel to ours and arising at approximately, at more or less the same time. And another important lineage and practice that persists in Japan and now in the US. Our lineage is called Soto Zen. The lineages are named after men. Rinzai is one, and Soto is a combination of two names, one character each from two names, Tozan and Sozan, which in Chinese are Dongshan and Caodong. And I don't know exactly how that, I don't really know how that happened, but and that undoubtedly there are a lot of stories and a lot of political maneuvering behind that very simple name Soto, but that's what it is. And I also don't understand how they make these transliterations that, for instance, between LinJi and Rinzai, that doesn't compute for me, but maybe it's an artifact of pronunciation or something like that, how Chinese names sounded to Japanese ears. And these schools were not explicitly identified as distinct and established until much later. So LinJi didn't think of himself as the founder of a school, I don't think. But in LinJi, we begin to see how his manner and his teaching are clearly part of the Rinzai heritage. Rinzai is often called the fast way to enlightenment, using formal koan study as central practice. And Soto is called the slow way, emphasizing shikantaza or just sitting. And we're tempted to think that one is better. Fast is better than slow, right? And there's a certain amount of teasing and criticism that goes between the two sects. And there's also a newer sect that was founded in the 20th century that uses both approaches. And this sect is called Sanbo Zen. And in any case, there's a considerable give and take among all of these sects these days in the United States. Rinzai Zen now has a formal curriculum of koan study, starting with the Mu koan. You may remember that the question is, does a dog have Buddha nature? And the answer to that is, the formal answer to that is Mu. Or at least that was the answer that was given, which was considered to be an enlightened answer. And the student is given the koan by the teacher, and then when the teacher has contemplated the koan, the student has a private interview with the teacher to express their understanding. And the interview is usually extremely brief, and often with the teacher shouting, "No," and striking a stick or sounding a bell or something, and to abruptly dismiss the student for more contemplation. And I was always intimidated by this, probably because of the many stories that I heard from my teacher Grace about her study with the Japanese Rinzai teacher Fukushima Roshi of the Tofukuji Monastery in Kyoto, which is a very famous, very old monastery. She studied there many times, and I remember her saying that she started her study after being ordained as a priest, because she said, I need to have something to be able to teach my students. And she attended Tofukuji within these frighteningly rigorous retreats under frighteningly difficult conditions of weather, with unheated and uncooled buildings and working through the koans. Also, there was free use of the kyosaku, the staff that is used to strike the backs of the students to sharpen their awareness. And it all sounded really horrifying to me. Now Grace's her identity and her ordination was within the Soto Zen tradition. So, but it sounded like being in a concentration camp to me, or something like that. And I used to say, I don't need to go to Fukuji because I have enough horror in my mind and in what my Dharma brother Peter called the monastery of marriage for one lifetime. I don't need to add to it. So thank you very much. So I was ambivalent about studying LinJi or Rinzai. LinJi, in fact, was renowned for his loud shouts of dismissal of a student, a shocking sound that was meant to goad the student into awakening. And some reports call it a roar. And perhaps that practice was the origin of the abrupt and sometimes harsh dismissals in koan practice. He was born sometime in the 9th century, and he died in his mid-50s. He was considered the Dharma heir of Matsu, whom we've already studied. And although his life was relatively short, he had 21 Dharma heirs. And he left an extensive record of his teachings and dialogues with students. Let me give you an example of, let me see, let's see. Okay, first I'll start with this. He began his study in a Vinaya monastery, which we talked about that tradition last time. And subsequently he studied with various teachers before coming the head of a monastery, which was a very common practice in China at the time. And we do something similar in Soto Zen, though it's maybe a little less formal. Often we recommend that students, study with another teacher, or feel free to seek out the teaching of another teacher. So somewhere along the line, somewhere in his life, his practice broke free from the confines of the Vinaya and of diligent scripture study. And so here's a quote for that, from what he says. Let's see. So I will say also that because of my, I think this is on page 75. Because of this sense of LinJi and being sort of colored by my experience with Grace and her tales and my experience of her sometimes harsh treatment, which maybe was a remnant of her Rinzai practice, I don't know. I was unprepared for the lucid beauty of LinJi's teachings. And here's what an example of his, a statement that he made when he was addressing his students. Bring to rest the thoughts of the ceaselessly seeking mind, and you'll not differ from the Patriarch Buddha. Do you want to know the Patriarch Buddha? He is none other than you who stand before me listening to my discourse. It is you, Master LinJi says, you are Buddha, you are awakened. Which is such a generous statement, and seems to really, it mystifies me, the connection between that generous, warm-hearted statement and the whacking and yelling that seems to be part of this tradition. So he also writes, finally, I tossed the teachings aside and sought the way through Chan practice, the practice of meditation that was introduced to China by Bodhidharma. But the rigors of rules and study were already there. imprinted on him. And he realized that these rules and studies are medicines to cure the sickness of the world. Perhaps his sickness, perhaps his suffering, perhaps our sickness, perhaps our suffering. He said, I had to probe and polish and undergo experiences until one morning I could see clearly for myself. Surely that is our project. We probe and polish, not knowing what will happen, not having an expectation, letting go of attainment, until one day something happens and there's an opening. LinJi's first encounters with his with one of his root teachers sounds very harsh to me. He asked, "What is the meaning of Buddhist teaching?" And the teacher hit him. Maybe he hit him with his teaching stick. I don't know, or maybe it was a slap. He asked the same question 2 more times under the instruction of the head student, and the teacher did the same thing. And he didn't understand, and he was very upset. He was sent to another teacher. So this is what happened when he went to the other teacher. He told the other teacher, I don't know what I did wrong. And the other teacher sighed and said, that poor Wangbo, that was his first teacher, what a kind grandmother he is. Wearing himself out, striking you. And you come here asking you whether you did anything wrong or not. Saying you think this is all about you. At which moment LinJi awakened. Now, I don't get why LinJi awakened at that moment, but maybe he started to see the yelling and whacking in a different way. And the teacher goes on, oh, well, actually, this is Abel's, Juru Abel, the author of the book, going on. The meaning of the Buddha's teaching is just this, whack, just this, whack, just this. There is no meaning, there's only just this, and that is the meaning. And then, so this teacher okay, I'll go on, because this is pretty good. So the teacher goes on, and says, you little bedwetting fellow, 1 minute saying you did something wrong, the next saying there's nothing hard about the Dharma. Tell me, what have you learned? What is it that you've realized? Upon which LinJi punched Dayu 3 times in the ribs. And go back to Wangbo. He's your teacher, says the new teacher. So an awakened, bruised, and LinJi returned, and he went to the master and thanked Wangbo for his motherly kindness. What did Dayu teach you? Asked Wangbo. When LinJi reported what had happened, he bellowed, oh, if only I could get my hands on Dayu, I'd give him a big wallop. Hey, said LinJi, I'll give you the wallop right now. And he gave Wangbo a big smack. Attendant, the master hollered, get this crazy man out of here and take him to the monk's hall. LinJi was on his way to full awakening. Now, I honestly don't know what to make of this as an example of Zen teaching and practice. It seems so harsh to me. And my teacher Grace was harsh. She never hit me, but she was harsh in word and attitude and abrupt. And at times she did send me to work with other teachers. And I did not do koan study with her. She didn't invite me and I didn't ask. But then she dismissed me and defrocked me, and that turned out to be an unexpected opening in itself. So here's another quote from this chapter. So now, Wangbo was saying, now your Zen really begins. You've let go of trying to find out the meaning of the Buddha way. You've let go of the rules and teachings. You've stopped being frustrated and sorry for yourself and wanting to walk out because you didn't understand. You stopped and listened with a still mind and didn't get all tied up in knots about not being good enough. You just stopped. And with your exemplary years of discipline, structure, and dedication as a base, with your meticulous attention to detail, you finally heard the meaning of Zen Buddhism come forth. Slap, poke, no meaning, just this, whatever is in front of you. So now go to the monk's hall and practice being present to your life, alive and fresh in every moment. So I don't know. Grace's harshness and its final culmination in my dismissal was a profound teaching. But is that a good approach? I don't think so. I think it's enough to guide ourselves and the student in the safety of the teacher-student relationship and the rigor of meditation and mindfulness, to be able to take the backward step and turn towards the tofukaji of our own mind and its habits, and to become the true person of no rank, and which is another thing that that LinJi said. He called, let's see. He said, the true person of no rank is constantly going in and out of the gateways of your face. I'll read that again because I think it's very important. The true person of no rank is constantly going in and out of the gateways of your face, And it's this that we start to see by taking the backward step to study the self, to forget the self. And who is the person of no rank? Who is that person? LinJi said, and let's see if I can find this quote. Gosh, I must have lost it. I'll see if I can find it, but because I think oh wait, okay. Yes, he says, in the eye, it's called seeing. In the ear, it's called hearing. In the nose, it smells odors. In the mouth, it holds conversation. In the hand, it grasps and seizes. In the feet, it runs and carries. It is, in other words, your ordinary human life. And that became the foundation of LinJi's teaching. So I'm ambivalent. It's horrible and it's beautiful and encouraging. I don't know what to think. What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?